Hello and welcome to the last week of this mini class. My name is John Cassidy Rice. I have the pleasure to be your host and founder of the Professional NLP Practitioner. How fast have these weeks gone? Incredible, isn't it? Right, so in last week's session, we started to look at the map of the brain from a communication point of view. We looked about the prefrontal cortex, where we make our decisions. And we looked at a couple of models of how to get our message through to the prefrontal cortex. That was salience times repetition equals communication, learning, sales, marketing. You fill in that blank. So salience, how important it is to you. If it's highly important, you don't have to do that much repetition. But if it's not important, we increase the repetition. We noticed in another model we looked at is that broker area, which was here, the gatekeeper to the prefrontal cortex, that we could delight and surprise broker. We'd have the yellow brick road to the prefrontal cortex. And that was all about being unpredictable. Now, one of the things I didn't say last week, but I'd like to say this week is this. There is a balance between having structure to your communication and surprising broker. If you're always surprising broker, the dangers you come across as being random and a bit, maybe even flippant. Whereas structure, people will trust you when there is structure to your communication. I think a topic for another video at some point. Right. So what are we going to be exploring this week? Potentially a more powerful communication tool than we've explored so far. And I think it's one of the most powerful communication tools you'll ever come across. You master this tool, the world opens up to you. And that tool is storytelling. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever come across. And for many different reasons. And if you've been exploring NLP elsewhere, been reading some of the books and discovered the language patterns and think, how am I going to hide some of those language patterns? Storytelling is the way to go. But it has potential of being so much more than that. It is said that we think in stories. We make sense of the world around us in stories. If we look at cognitive linguistics, not cognitive behavioral therapy, completely different things. Cognitive linguistics suggests this idea that all language is a metaphor. And when you speak any language, you take the metaphor, the stories of those language. So for example, in the English language, up is good, down is bad. He was an upbeat guy, he was down and out. The markets are looking up, the markets are bottomed out. So up as a metaphor is good and down is bad. So we think in stories. Okay then, let's see if we can find if there's any evidence to that. Can we discover this for ourselves? Okay then, and I'm going to suggest this. Every word triggers images. Every images triggers stories. And your mind, on the smallest, scantest bits of information, will want to create a story to give structure to the information and understanding. Yeah, so let's have a look at that. Let's take one. I'm going to say 3 words and just allow whatever to happen to happen. So 3 words. Rabbit, car, road. Oh, what just happened to Mr. Bunny? For a lot of you, he became a flat Mr. Bunny. But the strange thing is, if I said, no, no rabbits were hurt in the telling of those 3 words. In fact, what he did, Mr. Bunny jumped up, put one paw up here to block out that light, put the other paw up here to block out that light, and in the last minute ducked, thinking to itself, I hope it's not a Robin Reliant. And then bounced back and boasted to all his bunny friends that he took on the big metal beast. As ridiculous as that story is, the next time you hear the words rabbit, car, road, what will happen is your brain runs both stories. And both stories, normally the Mr. Flat Bunny is the strong of the stories, but if I keep telling you the new story becomes the predominant story. And that predominant story creates a new belief system. Yes, you can change your own beliefs and other people's beliefs through the stories you tell. Wow, that has so much potential. And there's another reason for that. As you may have heard, there's been a lot of buzz in the last 10 years about mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are activated in two ways. One way is when you see somebody doing something, your mirror neurons fire. Now that can work for you in many beneficial ways. So if you're learning a new skill, let's say it's juggling for example, and you're just starting to get the basics of juggling, and you watch somebody who's really good at juggling, well, you're training your nervous system, because as you watch them, your mirror neurons fire, which trains your nervous system, and you become a little bit better at juggling. Wow, that's incredible, isn't it? The other way that you fire off mirror neurons is through storytelling. It was discovered that mirror neurons fire in sync with the person telling the story as well as the person hearing the story. That makes sense. The person hearing the story, mirror neurons, synced with the person telling the story. Yeah, that's it. So brains are syncing. That is a deep level of rapport and influencing. Wow, the potential of this is just incredible. You might have sensed I'm a bit excited about this stuff. Now, let me give you a little bit of theory behind it as well, to be able to, the underlying principles, being able to tell a good story. Because I have come across in sort of various NLP practitioners who underestimate the power of storytelling, but because they always want to be positive, end up telling stories that are ineffective. And I wondered to myself, why was that? And why does my students tend not to do that, tend to tell stories that are impactful? And I'd like to share with you that insight, because that insight comes from Freud. Yeah, don't tell anybody else in NLP we're exploring Freud. I'll be kicked out. Yes. Anyway, so the danger is if you tell a story where everything is just all very nice, then it doesn't work. So for example, you instinctively know what a true story is. So if I said to you, so this morning I got up and it was a nice morning, so I went for a little walk and there was a rabbit there that said, good morning, John. And I thought to myself, a talking rabbit, and how does it know my name? And then walked home. Is that a story? Not really. Yeah, talking rabbit thing, but not really a story. But if on the other hand I go, so I got up this morning, it was a nice morning, so I decided to go out for a walk. And I'm walking along and this rabbit hopped up to me and said, John, please can you help me? And apart from thinking, how does the rabbit know my name? I thought, what do you mean? And I looked around and this dog, huge dog with snarling teeth, rushed around the corner chasing the rabbit. So I grabbed the rabbit, I picked it up and I started running, and I could feel the dog getting closer and closer until I could feel the breath of the dog on my backside. And it was almost going to grab me, and I could feel it. I got to the door and I shut the door, slammed the door, and the dog banged into the door. That was that much more of a story. Why? Because there was a danger, there was some sort of crisis. And so it's really important that the story has some sort of problem to solve, some crisis going on. So, like I said, I promised you a little bit of Freud, so we're going to take a 3 to 5 year course and condense it down into a few minutes. Okay, so we've come across the id, which is the animal part in Freud's theory. And we've come across the superego, which is the moral code book, and the ego. Right, so let's explore those. The id. within Freud's model is the animal side. It's the part that is when instant gratification, safety, sex, wants things now, instant gratification. So see chocolate and go, me want chocolate, and eat all the chocolate until I'm sick. I see somebody who's attractive and I think I would like to go out with that person. So I walk over, hit them on the head and drag them away by their hair. This is why I have to have my hair cut. So instant gratification. So what stops us acting out on those impulses? The superego, which is our moral code book. So how do we act in society? So I see the chocolate, me want chocolate. So okay, let me buy the chocolate. Maybe I'll have one, possibly 2 bars. No, I'm gonna have one and I'll pay for it. So can I have 2 bars of chocolate, please? Well, sometimes the id wins out a little bit. So you get the 2 bars of chocolate. You see somebody attractive and you say, oh, I'd like to go out with that person. Maybe I should ask him out. So you walk over to, would you like to buy a coffee? No, okay then. Or maybe that was just me, I don't know. That might be my teenage life. And it's the tension between the superego and the id that pulls between them, creates a tension which creates the ego. So from a story point of view, the id is normally represented by the baddie, the problem. The superego is normally the goodie, the solution. And the tension between the two creates the story. So, okay then, let's expand on that. Let's put it into example. Let's take Star Wars. So, most people have seen Star Wars. If you haven't, I do apologize. Go and see it now. Alright, so Star Wars, who represents the id? Yeah, the dark side, Darth Vader. What about the goodies? That's right, it's the Jedi Knights. It's Luke, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda. And so, but if Yoda and the Jedi Knights always won, would we be interested in the story? No. If the dark side always won, would that be a good story? No. And in fact, it's the tension between the two that creates that story. Yes. Then it becomes powerful. So when you're designing stories or thinking about telling stories, whether it's for your team, whether it's to start your new entrepreneurial venture, whether it's to help somebody, maybe you're a therapist and you're working with people addicted to drugs, maybe, I'm not going to say you can kill people with those stories, but if you're helping somebody who's at disadvantage or somebody who's struggling to learn, then a story that holds people's attention, that's been designed for that situation, is extremely powerful. But it needs to be relevant and connected to the process. So let me give an example from one of our live trainings, because I would talk about flexibility of behavior, and I want to introduce a concept which in itself could be quite dry. So I need a bit of tension in there, into the story, and I need it to be engaging, but it's in context of the training. Okay, right, so here's the story. So my eldest son, who is about this tall now, when he was this tall, we were walking through town. And I live in a lovely little place called Chichester. But any town on a Saturday is busy. And he says to me, Dad, can I have an ice cream? And I said, no. Now, I'm not being mean, he had some sweets. And he starts to demonstrate flexibility of behaviour. He said, Mummy would buy me an ice cream. I said, do I look like Mummy? Do I have long hair? Now, have you noticed that children can control their parents in busy scenarios like town centres and supermarkets? And that's because children know this law of cybernetics. It's called the law of requisite variety. The law of requisite variety, which states this: the thing or person with the most flexibility will control the outcome. The thing or person with the most flexibility will control the outcome. Children are willing to go to places that just embarrass adults. So to cut a long story short, my son throws himself down to the floor kicking and screaming that he wants this ice cream. Now I got a couple of choices at this point. I either could just pick him up and carry him back to the car kicking and screaming, Whereas I could use this as a rare and unprecedented chance to learn something. So I thought I'd enter into his world. So I threw myself down on the floor, kicking and screaming. He was a bit stunned. So he then sits up and I sit up, and I think to myself, I'm not going to be the first person to speak here. And time slows down. And eventually he goes, "It's all right, Dad, I don't want an ice cream." And we had a nice shopping trip. Now don't get me wrong, the law of requisite variety doesn't mean you allow people to walk over you, because sometimes the most flexible thing you can do for somebody is go head to head with them and not back down. So notice the conflict there, son thrown down to the floor in the middle of town. It doesn't have to be a big conflict to hold your interest. So over the last few weeks, we've been exploring various different concepts from our NLP practitioner. And what you probably realized at this point, this doesn't seem to be your standard NLP information. Yes, we will take the core of what works within NLP. We'll expand it and take some of the latest research and research throughout history and apply it to the training. So what I invite you to do now, if you found any use or any interest in anything that we've covered now, is to take your training to the next level, and that makes a lot of sense. And to attend a live training. Nothing beats a live NLP practitioner for transforming your life. So there's a link below to more information about our NLP practitioner. And you know what? I would like to talk to you. If you've got any questions, let me know and we'll arrange to have a phone call and make sure that our NLP practitioner is right for you. So if you're looking to make a difference, to live a life that matters, just to be that little bit outrageous and create success wherever you go, it is highly recommended that you take our NLP practitioner. So book the link, click the link below. It will take you to more information. Then if you've got any questions, let me know. If not, go right ahead and secure your place in our upcoming professional NLP practitioner. I am looking forward to seeing you on the live training. Until then, take care and see you soon.